I would like to just give a little bit of a personal experience that my family had with the Rebbetzin. My grandfather, Reb Zalman Gurari, was an orphan at a very young age, and he literally grew up in the home of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and he naturally was very close to Beis Harav. When the Rebbe became Rebbe in Tafshin Yud, he was very instrumental from the Vada of the Chassidim that were pushing that, and that's where his close relationship with the Rebbetzin became even stronger than that. With my mother, it all began, her first close relationship she had with the Rebbetzin was in the early 60s. My grandfather was in the hospital for a long period of time, and one day she received a phone call, and this is how the Rebbetzin would identify herself regularly, saying, "This is Schneerson from President Street." I'm not going to give all the details now, but from then she wanted to hear a daily report of how my grandfather was doing. And my mother was still a high school student in school, going to school during the day and staying all night with her father in the hospital. And the Rebbetzin wanted to know if she has the chance to eat breakfast before she goes back to school. And my mother said, it's just the way it is that she's a whole night in the hospital. She really doesn't have a chance to get anything for herself to eat. The next day, the Rebbetzin told my mother that she did research, and she found out that right next to the hospital there's a store, and they sell kosher products, and she better promise that she picks up some kosher products before she goes to school. Another interesting story that I want to share was this happened in Tafshim Amalef, 1981. Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe launched a campaign for all Jewish kids to buy a letter in the Sefer Torah. And the first Sefer Torah was going to be concluded around Chof Av. It wasn't clear yet when. My grandfather wrote to the Rebbe that he would like to donate the keser for the crown for this first Sefer Torah, and it should be 100% pure gold. The Rebbe instructed through Rabbi Chadakov that they should take the Mashiach crown of the Mashiach Sefer Torah and make a replica of it out of pure gold. It just so happened to be that the date of the scene wasn't yet set. And in the meantime, my grandfather traveled to Europe to vacation in Europe, and he received a phone call from Rabbi Chadakov that the Rebbe wants him, since the Sefer Torah is going to be scheduled for Chof Av, the Rebbe wants him to be present in Yerushalayim when the Siyum and the Achnasa Sefer Torah is concluded on Chof Av, and he should be the one bringing the Keser. The Keser was still in New York. They needed to transport the Keser to Israel, which is a story in and of itself. And the Rebbe, my grandfather mentioned to Rabbi Chadakov, but my daughter, meaning my mother, is expecting her ninth child, and she's expecting to have it by C-section. How could I be away? And the Rebbe answered what he answered. But when my mother did give birth 3 days before Chof Av, the Rebbetzin felt sort of the responsibility. Here, her father, who was her support system, is away because he's on a mission for the Rebbe, that she needed to take personal interest to make sure that she is feeling, that she's doing well. So she called up the house one day, and my sister, my second to oldest sister, today Mrs. Sarah Raskin, answered the phone, and she asked questions about where my mother is and who's taking care of the house, etc. And then she started calling the hospital twice every day to find out how my mother was doing. In those days, after a C-section, she was there for an entire week. And then the day of Chof Av, she calls my mother, and she says, by any chance, do you have the ability to hear the Rebbe's Farbrengen in the hospital? And my mother said yes. In fact, that she has an account with Chaim Baruch Habersham WLCC, and she's able to hear the hookup on the telephone. So the Rebbetzin said it would be a good idea if she takes the baby into her bed and she puts the receiver between her ear and the baby's ear so that the baby too can hear the Rebbe's Farbrengen. That to me is something that stands out in my mind as a very strong, how the Rebbetzin was so supportive, which incidentally, the Rebbetzin wanted to see the crown before it was sent to Israel, and my father brought the crown to the Rebbe's house on President Street, and when she saw the crown, she says, this is exactly the way the crown looked like in Lubavitch, back in the town Lubavitch in the old days.